Welcome back, everybody, to another episode of Roll Up and Roll Out, where we focus on business owners who may or may not have their GEDs, but every single one of them knows how to get shit done. Today, we've got Andy Pittman with North Star Earthworks. Andy, thank you for coming on the show. Can you do a brief introduction? Tell us about yourself, your background, and what got you into what you're doing?
Andy Pittman, owner of North Star Earthworks LLC. We're in Port Angeles, Washington. We do tree removal and excavation. Uh, so I got into the construction business at about 19 years old in Alaska. I started commercial fishing at 13 with my dad, and I just didn't see a good long-term future in commercial fishing. So transferred into construction. That got me into asphalt paving, which gives you the winters off. So when I started to have kids, I needed a little more money and started selling firewood. That stuff just kind of sells itself if you're honest and work hard. And that turned into learning how to climb trees and do land clearing. And it just kind of grew from there. About 15 years ago, I joined the fire service. And so doing land work worked well with the fire service with the kind of part time nature of it. And when COVID hit, I was terminated for not getting the vaccine, and it mattered a lot, but it also didn't matter because I knew how to work hard. So I didn't have to sell my morals to keep my paycheck coming in. So I transitioned into this full time.
Gotcha. Okay. You're in a kind of interesting space. A lot of times I see guys that either do tree work or they do land clearing. I don't see a lot of guys that have combined the two of them together. Tell me, like, what kind of opportunities has putting those two together kind of opened up for you that maybe you didn't even expect?
Yeah, it's given me a broad perspective on the build process from a homeowner's perspective, in that I'm there at the beginning cutting the trees and clearing the land all the way to finished landscaping. So I can be the first and the last contractor on the property. And then it gives me a understanding of their perspective on the budget and what's left at the end. Because typically, land clearing guys are the first ones in there. The pot's full. The carpet layers and the finish guys are scraping around for the end of the budget. So, being as the landscaping's near the end as well, it gave me a different perspective, and so it allows me to talk to the homeowner with a more complete picture of what they're trying to face.
That's a that's a really unique perspective because most guys are on one end or the other. They're not always on both ends. So like you're bookending a process, which is unique because you are also very, I think, acutely aware of all the pain points and probably have kind of an idea of like where can things go wrong along this process. How does us keeping our schedule and keeping our costs where we quote them, you know, increase the probability that we're going to be able to have success on the back end of these projects as well, and then being aware of everything in between. So do you find that you guys are, because of that, doing a lot more maybe like coaching or guiding with homeowners than maybe you even expected to do, like more like a GC would be doing almost?
Yes, and some of the best relationships I've gotten over the years doing this have been repeat customers and referrals because of that. Like yesterday, I gave an estimate and told the guy, he's building a beautiful spot, and he started. Well, we're going to start with a ADU and a shop right here, and it's like, okay, well, let's think about how we're moving the earth now, so that way on the next phase, you're not paying somebody to move it again. Whereas if you just go with the low bidder, you're going to be moving things twice. And back to that mentorship and good customers. Uh, One of my early customers, who I have been working for about 12 years, said the cheapest or the most expensive contractor I ever hired was the low bidder. And he elaborates on that to say, he screws up, he makes mistakes, and then it cost me more. And then he told me, the good selling point, because he was a builder in Texas, uh, it's not that we're not going to make mistakes. It's that we know how to fix the mistakes, and we have the integrity to stand by you while we fix them. And I've really grabbed
Yeah.
onto those and learned a lot from that guy. So it's been very helpful in coaching others as we try to make their dream come true.
What have you found in doing it the way that you get to do it? That when you get to like the landscaping part of it at the end, so you've done all the prep work, you kind of understand already what the landscaping is going to look like. So you guys kind of did that right out of the get go. What do you see in savings at the end of it because you guys kind of pre-planned everything out and roadmapped it right from the get go?
It could be upwards to 5 to 10,000 on topsoil, because if we're on a project where we can burn their stumps and their brush, and we have an idea of where they're going to lay out their house and their septic and all of that, we can utilize that burn pile at the end and mix it in with some of the spoils and yield a lot more topsoil off of their property that they originally didn't have. And so, with a little bit of good planning, not only do we get topsoil, but it's usually better than what you're buying. And then you're not paying for the trucking and the placement of it, or the actual product itself. So, something as simple as that at the very beginning goes a long ways. And most guys, whether they're doing it at both ends like I am, or they're just on the land clearing side, they don't really care about it, they don't think about it, and they don't discuss it with them.
Well, it is fascinating because I think owners that really just or businesses that really specifically just work in one area, like I don't necessarily know that it's intentional neglect, so to speak, but I do think that some of those guys have never been exposed to a conversation of like, hey, like what if we change this process a little bit and here's what the end result is going to look like. And I think that's probably a GC's job to make sure that that happens a lot more with some of these owners. That doesn't always happen. And I know this from working with a bunch of GCs and stuff too. But that's a very unique selling point for you, I think, when you go in of a value add of like, I'm not going to be just the guy that's there to start this. We're also the last ones to leave this entire property to make sure everything is all pulled together and looks nice. So we're going to make sure that from when we first get here to when we leave, that everything is done in a way that is going to reduce your costs and reduce the overall impact that we have to have on the site so that it looks nice, is nice, and pulled together, right? That's a very unique space for you guys to be in, right? I mean, I would assume so.
Yeah, and I'm not great with plants and kind of layout. So the other thing is I bring my wife in on a lot of this, and she has a very unique artistic ability, and she can take a picture in her head and put it on paper, and it really will help sell people. And just the ability to be flexible along the way on certain things. Like I said earlier about the having to switch careers. I can be flexible, but I don't need to sell my morals. I'm selling service. And and when people kind of get an understanding of that with me, it's a genuine connection that they have a partnership, and we're just communicating. And that's one thing, is I try to communicate a lot with my customers and the other contractors. And I didn't realize it was so not done with other contractors, but dotting the i's and crossing the t's is a big thing that goes a long ways with a lot of my customers that they don't seem to get with a lot of other people.
Yeah. Again, not always super intentional either. I think, the amount of owners I've come across that are running fairly sized like companies doing the subcontract finishing space, like when you start talking to them, it's just kind of like for some of them, and this could be, for you too. It's like, I just started doing this and I got busy and I never actually built any true systems or processes. And I now need to figure out how to do this, but I don't know where to look. I don't have the time. I'm the bottleneck. Like, what about the way you built this company allowed you to be able to actually implement and use some of those processes and systems?
So I'm facing some of that right now, and one of the things I tell other contractors and customers is, hey, if you have a thought, just text me or call me. And so having that open channel communication has allowed me to realize how much of the small stuff I was missing, and then taking notes and seeing those cycles come back and forth and going, okay, I need to improve systems. And with tree work, I'm in the process of building out more of a company manual with that. And it's kind of come from the fire service, but AI is definitely helping. Uh, Companies out there like Company Cam and utilizing it's like, wait, I'm already doing pictures on everything, and that's saved me thousands in litigation over the years with utilities. And now there's this company doing that. Let me look into it. Jumping into their free trials, having open conversations, and going, here's the problems I'm having, and just taking that same approach to a product like Company Cam, whereas a different attitude would, I don't really need a whole lot, I'm doing fine. And it's like, no, I'm constantly looking for ways to improve my own, and in the process it allows the customer to have a better experience, allows my wife to not have to manage me as much on the back end, and gives me more time with the family. So that's what most of us small outfits started, is like, I think I can make some money doing this and be my own boss and have fun. And then 2 years or 5 years in, you're like pulling your hair out and going, I'm having to manage too much. And also just letting my guys screw up, like understanding I did too, and it's not the end of the world. There's some life and death stuff we do, but most of it we can fix.
Nope, for sure. Let's talk about that. Like, how big of a crew do you actually have?
So I just left my last job last week, and so I'm starting out with just me this week, and got in my first guy back. So I left Seattle in 2021, went full time, had 3 full time, and then a couple of GCs that I used, and then went to a different fire job. So laid everybody off, kind of kept this idled in the background, and then now I'm back in the space full time again. So starting over
Gotcha.
round two, same business, all of that, but I try to keep about three to five.
That makes sense. From your standpoint, because you mentioned that you work with your spouse as well. Like, what have you guys found as some of the difficult things to navigate, kind of working in a business together, and what are some things that you guys have done, or maybe haven't done yet, or whatever, to kind of eliminate the business from being a potential third wheel in the marriage? Because we do come across that a lot as well with business owners that have spouses in the business. Is it's like, how do we eliminate this kind of monster that's in me, that's there, that we can't get away from?
I think just looking at other people both in the fire service and in construction and commercial fishing, and it's like, I'm either married to the business or I'm married. And and knowing that the purpose of my business was to provide for my family, not to take away from, and just looking at the level of happiness I was either giving away or getting. And I truly love to work outside and work hard. So it's been fun for me to have this business and show my kids, this is what labor is. This is, I mean, my I just bought a lawnmower yesterday for my 10 and 11-year-old. They got their first lawn mowing job today. And so to show them the math and the service end of it. But for us, it's just kind of been a steady commitment to stay married to each other and not the business. And that, it, for us, it's definitely, it's not like we shut our phones off and go out for the weekend. It's, hey, we're going to go look at a job an hour away, and there's a steakhouse out there, so we're going to go look at the job, and then we're going to go on a date and enjoy the evening. And if we get the job, that's great, but at least we got a good steak dinner out of
Yeah, that's smart, right? It's kind of taking what you have and using it to still continue to grow, but also make it so that you guys are still getting that quality time together. And I think that's a really cool and important piece of it. Um, in the company, so you said a couple interesting things to me. Like, you kind of started it, went back to firework, left, and now you're starting over. What are two things that you learned from the first time kind of starting this up that you're going to implement or have already implemented immediately with this one? And what are two things that, like, from the last one, you're like, nah, I'm not doing that again?
So I'll explain a little bit of the background, but the paving company I worked for before has really set the standard for me in how to take care of people. And so the last time when I was doing this, I was more focused on taking care of my people, and the budget suffered. And so this time I'm not coming in going, I'm not going to not take care of my people, but I have to be way more cognizant of the budget and what I'm sacrificing on the financial end to take care of my people. And and I'm doing that with a little bit more of an understanding from the employee side, like, hey, this is where I'm asking for value from you. Clearly lay out those expectations of dollar and value and timeline, and then allow them to meet it and step out of the way. And if they fail to meet it repetitively, am I failing them in training, or are they failing to meet my expectations with adequate training? And that seems to make it pretty easy for me. I don't have to be over invested whether they're underperforming or overperforming. And I have a really good background in skill acquisition and training from the fire service. So that really helped me to move into that. And I think the second one is to not undervalue myself. I mean, perfect example, like right now there's probably 20 more people doing the same kind of niche stuff that I was doing 5 years ago when I left Seattle. And and so I know that in certain spaces I am leaps and bounds ahead of them in production and experience. So I don't need to low bid anything to get it. You're getting quality and integrity with me.
Sure. Makes total sense. I mean, those are valuable things to understand. I think the value, knowing how to value yourself, that's a struggle that a lot of owners have, especially as a startup. Um, how long did it take you to get to a place where you kind of were like, "Yep, no, I know exactly what I'm worth, and I'm not going to do a job for under this price. Sorry, that's just not how I operate."
Um, After I started going full time, I would say at least a year. Some of the guys that I'm buddies with that were mentors with me were comfortable enough in sharing numbers. And there was one guy who started a tree service business out here, and he was doing I'll beat any written estimate. And there's three of us that have been working for years out here, and he was just low bid and everything. And it's like, well, we're going to bid that for 500 each, and he's going to go out there and work for a day for 450. And I don't know if
Mhm.
he ended up biting on any of those, but it was like, if that's the way I had to make money, I had a buddy tell me I could stay broke at home and be warm and dry. So why would I want to low bid something and go out and go broke and be wet and miserable?
100%. I mean, you hit that nail on the head, and that's a learning curve for some people. Some owners never get out of that spot, and they keep chasing and chasing and chasing, and never seem to understand why they never have any money and never have any cash, never seem to be able to grow. And it is that mindset of you do have a valuable skill set, and honestly, this is in some circles controversial. I think it's kind of just normal of like more contractors just need to work together and go, this is kind of the minimum. We're all unified on this. It would make the experience better. It would make everything better, right? You can still have variations, but it's like, look, nobody's going to undercut each other by more than 30% because that's just insane. And we all know that nobody's making money doing that. So why would we let each other harm ourselves and themselves by allowing this to happen? But, we can only control what we control at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, and I live in a geographically pretty closed off area on the Olympic Peninsula. So, I mean, perfect example is dump trucking rates. For years it was 105, and there was always one or two guys that, a big project would go out to bid, and they would undercut the trucking. Like, you're not going to get rich dump trucking, but with excavation, so much of your money comes off your ability to to efficiently manage material. If you're scooping and loading the truck at 30 degrees versus a guy swinging 140 degrees to make a scoop into the truck, the guy with the narrower swing is always going to win on production. And so when I started seeing that happen, it's like those guys are still in business, and they're still dump trucking, but but they were cutting others at the heels. And so you know there was a still is a bunch of us that we're all friends and we're all trying to feed our family, and we don't have that scarcity mentality where there's not enough to go around. So let's just be open and honest. And there's times where I don't get the job, and it's like, well, I'm glad my buddy did because I know he's going to do a good job for you.
Yep. No, that's really good. I think that's a really good mentality to have for sure. And that's a mentality that isn't widespread in any of the spaces overall. It seems like it's starting to become more that way, but we still got a ways to go there. So Man, I appreciate your time being on. If somebody wants to reach out and inquire about your services, what's the easiest way for them to reach you?
Uh, well, my cell phone is always on 24/7.
Okay.
So you can go to my website, northstarew.com, and that's got phone contact and all of that stuff on there. Facebook is North Star Earthworks. And, uh, and if somebody's feeling really generous, they could go to seattlefired.com and donate to our monumental legal case on religious freedom.
Sure. No, man, I appreciate that. That's definitely people out there that I know are supporting that cause: military, fire departments, police departments, medical, all that stuff of the COVID era stuff that kind of came through, and I think caused a lot of calamity that was unnecessary. I was fortunate to be in an area and work for a company that appreciated our individual rights and allowed us to maintain the choices that we could make on how we wanted to use and protect our bodies and ourselves, as long as we were being respectful to others. That's a huge thing. So, with that being said, like I said, I appreciate your time. For those of you that are listening, like and share this episode, like and share, roll up and roll out across all the podcast sources. I appreciate every one of you guys watching and listening. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.